Eric Bam said a couple months ago that having Ware playing alongside him, he thought helped him offensively from an energy and other standpoint. I know there are going to be growing pains with any young player, but did you see enough body of work from the two of them playing together, Bam and Khalil, that you think that is your starting power rotation for the future, barring some unexpected trade for an all-star?
Well, I was encouraged with the minutes that they had and the progress that they made. And, you know, they found a way to complement each other and heighten each other's strengths. And this will be obviously a really important summer for Khalil. This last, 6-8 weeks was really important for him. Just the heightened pressure and expectations of us driving to get into the playoffs and the 2 play-in games, and then all the learning lessons, from these 4 games. I went back and looked at it yesterday. There's just not a lot of guys from this draft class, that played in the playoffs. And him and Pella got that experience and got it in a hard way. These are tough lessons, as they usually are in a playoff setting. If you're not advancing, it's usually a tough lesson. And I'm grateful that Khalil was able to get all of these experiences and set up for a really important summer.
It was 3 straight years now with the bottom 10 offense. How would you kind of evaluate the end of the court this season and what better and how much?
Yes, in our minds, once we were able to get some consistency, with not only the roster, the rotation, but our style of play, we definitely were making progress those last several weeks of the season. You could see a lot of that progress. You did not see it the last 2 games. But, Cleveland was a very good team. And when, one of their starters went out, they went to a different lineup. And that lineup proved to be very troublesome, for us. And, we'll build on some of these principles. And I think the guys understanding their roles, definitely helped. And we'll work at it as a staff again, this summer, to come up with a plan that we think is best to start the season, but something that can also evolve and grow.
The defense has been changing kind of for a couple of years now as far as scheme and kind of lineups you're using. Still finished ranking-wise where you would generally expect it to, more or less, but do you feel like the defense is in a good spot, or are there gains that need to be made on that?
Yeah, there will definitely have to be some gains, but I think that was trending in a better direction as well the last few weeks. And that's this league right now. You better have different ways of defending, and you have to evolve. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. But I think our better version, when we got to it, I think was, disruptive to what teams were trying to do. If they were trying to get to whatever their game was, I think we were finding some success, bringing a physicality, to our defense, being disruptive, protecting the paint, protecting the rim. When it was our best version. That obviously is every team, but we were much more consistent with that the last 6 weeks.
Coach, it was an inconsistent year for Jaime coming off of that first season. What do you think caused that, and what do you think is going to be worked on further?
Well, he'll work on everything, and he had a really good summer last summer. And then he sprained his ankle right before training camp. And then these are not excuses, but it led to some of the just inconsistency of his play or his role. The first time I thought he was started to play well after the Mexico City game, and then that led to 3 of his stomach, actually 4 of his stomach issues, and sometimes you just can't control that. But that was 3 or 4 instances where he was taken out of the lineup, and then 3 sprained ankles. So every time he started to get rhythm, one of those events would happen, and then there's a ramp up coming back. The team would change, and we already had 4 or 5 different changes within the team anyway. And then his role would have to change, and that's a lot for a young player. What you want more than anything as a young player is consistency and clarity. What's my role? What's expected of me? And that changed to a lot of those events. But clearly, he has to work on some things, which he will. He'll work on defending in open space, defending situationally in our system. Outside shooting will be key again, but he was working on that last summer. I think a full summer again, I think you'll see big progress. He was coming out of training camp shooting the ball great. So I think we can fast track that. And then ultimately the hardest one is decision making. The schemes have changed against him, and he has to be aggressive, but now there's going to be different schemes, and you graduate, to different levels to this. And when there's a second defender making the right read and finding open guys, when he's in a crowd.
After a season like this, sometimes people might reassess, especially after such a long time. Where do you stand as coach as far as your energy and vigor going forward? And how would you rate your season as your performance?
I'm not going to rate it. Again, we'd have to, evaluate 4 or 5 different segments of the season. What I told the team, and this is not any kind of moral message or victory. It's just what you want is out of a season is to be able to come together for whatever reason and improve and do something. We were all faced with a very uncomfortable segment of the season. There were some other segments of the season where it was what it was, but during the losing streak where we were playing great, we were making progress and losing games. I said it so often that you want to get a team that felt like it's worthy to win, and we were definitely feeling like we were worthy to win, and we were still losing. And it could have gotten a lot worse, but I think that's when we made our most improvement. It was during that 10 games losing streak. And then we ended up playing our best basketball after that. And then we put ourselves out there. When you put yourselves out there as competitors, you're going to put yourself out there for everything. And we deserve it. We deserve the criticism. We deserve the embarrassment. Those last 2 games, it's not, what our organization's about. But we put ourselves out there to fight in the play-in, 2 road play-in games, to earn our right to go to the playoffs. And those 2 games were something. We felt like it was going to lead to a lot more, and that was irrational on our part. If we handled, different parts of the season better, and that's what I'm going to analyze, even amidst all the adversity and the change and some of the things that were extreme. If we handled some of those better, then I think we would have been out of the plan and a little bit in the middle of the pack, and that's what everything remains to be seen. Nobody has an answer for that right now. There's 2 teams that are playing ahead of others, but we'll find out, if the other teams will or not. At the end of the day, there's going to be 7 other teams, in 6 days that'll all be joining us, right where we are and trying to figure it out. Nobody really has the model. But again, we have huge, massive expectations in this building, so we'll take it. We'll take it. And we'll get to work. I'm extremely motivated, for the offseason once we get away and all that stuff, to try to get our organization and basketball team to a higher level. The play-in obviously is not, where we want to be, but there's great parity, there's great competition, and there's a lot of teams that are pretty similar to us trying to figure it out, that are not at that top tier level, and that's what we'll spend the offseason, working on.
You also spoke about adversities unique to this team had to handle. You had a player who effectively quit on this team, sat up there an hour after you spoke in January about that, who missed a team flight, who left the gym when told he wasn't starting. Unique situation probably in this franchise's 37-year history. When you look at the relationship with Jimmy Butler and what he did over a period of 6 weeks to force a trade that Pat Riley said he wouldn't have made, can you sort of crystallize for us the impact that that had on this team?
Well, it certainly had an impact. You know, we are an organization that prides ourselves on not making any kind of excuses. And even if we managed it perfectly, there's always second guessing on what we could have done, you know, better just to right the ship. And it was turbulent waters. It's not as if that would have moved the needle for us to be first in the conference. That's unrealistic. But you know, when I look back on it, I'll look back on it the same way now as years from now. It was a good 5-year run. And when things end, oftentimes they end not as loudly as this, but it ends where there's something. And you can go look at all the other teams out there with players when they change teams. There's a certain feeling about it. And it's unfortunate. You know, we all feel like it didn't have to go to that level. But we have clarity now. We've turned the page. There's a different chapter, and we're moving on.
Erik, along those lines, how did you handle all the things that you can't control, all the frustration of the suspensions, of the trade? Andrew comes here, he gets hurt. Like you said, Jaime kept getting sick, kept turning ankles. Nico broke his hand. All that stuff, it happens every year, but it just seemed like anytime there was any glimmer of something going the right way, it was 2 steps back. How did you process that yourself?
Yeah, I think it was, you know, when I say it's a memorable season, the memories will be like these the last 4 weeks. The rest of the season, you know, was a grind, but we finally started to turn the corner even during the losing streak, and you felt momentum, you felt progress, you felt like a group was coming together, and it led to 2 planned games. So that was really it. But all the other adversities, it made me better. I've never been in a situation like that, and to try to keep a locker room together, and to try to you know, handle it during those weeks, but then also to fully change course and stylistically and how to play and what to emphasize, you know, at the All-Star break. And that was an invigorating challenge. Our staff, you know, we felt absolutely alive by the challenge, and inspired by a group that, you know, wanted to figure this out. All these experiences, you know, hopefully it can make you better as a head coach and leader, especially the unexpected ones, because even in a normal NBA season, it's not normal. There's always going to be some things, and it's just another experience that I can put it in the experience bag. And I hope I'm better, you know, for it. You know, in a lot of different ways, from a leadership standpoint, emotional standpoint, communication standpoint, getting people to rally around something standpoint, and even X's and O's. You know, we did quite a few big shifts this year, and we'll probably have to do that, you know, moving forward too. You know, that's the way this league works.
Last 2 questions. Given everything that we're talking about here, it puts a lot on Bam's plate too, as sort of the team captain. How did you see him respond throughout the course of all the things that we're talking about throughout the season? And how could you sum up maybe the challenges that he was faced with and how he responded to that?
Yeah, I loved seeing, you know, his leadership feet be put to the fire, you know, and that's what it was. You know, he's accepted the captainship for sure, but it's one thing to do that, you know, when things are going well and you're playing well. You know, at the beginning of the year, we weren't playing well. He wasn't playing, you know, his best basketball, and yet he was still rolling up his sleeves and leading. You know, I thought that was a big step, you know, for him. There's a lot of guys in this league that wouldn't do that. They would look to blame or, you know, point fingers and all that. And then, You know, he did the same thing when everybody was looking for somebody in the locker room in March. You know, that's when he was his strongest, and I think that's when he was playing his best as well. And that speaks to his character, and we'll need a whole lot more of it, you know, going forward. I think, you know, I learned a lot going through this experience. Bam learned a lot, and I think he's going to be better, you know, for it. Leadership is influence, and, you know, when you have a respect of the locker room because you're doing a lot of the right things, but then you're consistent, you know, every day, I think they're more likely, you know, to follow your lead.
Coach, you mentioned throughout the season Nico's, you know, his peaks and valleys. He had stretches where he played well, then of course ended the season with a broken hand and such. How would you describe like his progression and like the pros and cons of like what you saw in his third year in the league?
Yeah, his last 14 months have been really important as well. You know, even going back to last year's playoff series, having that experience, a summer of work, and then all of this, starting out as a starter, and then being out of the rotation, having to fight for it again, all the little things, you know, and then earning back basically 6th or 7th man role and thriving in that role before he got hurt. You know, he's made significant progress, and I do have to remind myself, the staff reminds me all the time, there's just not a lot of guys other than OKC playing a lot of young guys in the playoffs. There's not a lot, you know, that are playing 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, and you know, Pella's 23, you know, Tyler's 25, in a big role. Jaime, you know, going through everything he went through is, you know, 23, and Khalil literally just turned 21 during this series. But, you know, a lot of times when you're trying to win in the playoffs, you need those guys, you know, to be their 27, 28-year-old version. And we'll fast track that as much as we possibly can. But the best way to fast track it, unfortunately, is experience, and really unfortunately is usually the painful experiences. And that's not to put anything on the young guys. This is all collective, you know, with us. But the part of, you know, the experiences being painful, well, our organization, you know, has gone through it. Yes, we've been to the playoffs 6 straight years, but we have higher aspirations. We're embarrassed about those last 2 games. A lot of things can be true as well. When I look around, okay, again, I ask, who's got the model? Boston does right now because they won last year. Everybody else, I'm looking at the teams that are maybe still playing. 2 years ago, they're out of the playoffs, and they haven't won yet. So how are they the model right now? You know, we're stubborn as hell. We're going to try to. You got to compete for a title. You got to make the playoffs first. You got to keep on getting cracks at it, and that's what we're going to keep on doing. We're going to put our head down, you know, and keep on working until we get the result that we expect and that our city expects, and that's the biggest motivating, you know, factor right now.